Hey trackies, welcome back to another video. Please remember to smash that subscribe button, hit the like button as well. That's how the video gets you the YouTube algorithm. Share the video if you care. I hope you care, so share. And yes, please, the comments go off. Okay, women's 4x100 meters. We saw Great Britain dismantle our team over the weekend at the London Diamond League. And coming out of that, I'm like, okay, we need to get to work. We need to get to work. It looks like there's a lot of confusion as it relates to, the team structure as well. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, we got to get this started. Oh, no. Coming out of that relay, interesting things, interesting thought processes I've been seeing it floating around in my comment section. And I'm like, okay, let's talk about it. Let's discuss it and, see the best way forward. I'll tell you my thoughts over video. You tell me your thoughts, in the comment section below as per usual. Now, we saw Shericka Jackson on the first leg. No, dear God. I think back to 2021, I'm actually mad because that was a year we had two 10-6 athletes and a 10-7 athlete. And we never broke the world record. 2022 also. Elaine wasn't in the same shape, but still competent enough. And we still the foolishness when it comes to, the structure of the team. And, boy, it took all these years to finally get change. And guess what? Shelly and Fraser Price, we don't know if she'll be able to get back to 10-6. We're hoping and praying, right? But the possibility of that is probably a little bit on the slim side, given, her years in the sport. And yeah, we not even know what's going on with Elaine Thompson here, whether or not she'll be back. As things stand right now, we've lost our two 10-6 sprinters, and I know we're effect change. Mighty God. I mean, okay, fine, change, okay. It came, can't complain, I suppose, right? I am a little bit salty that it didn't come sooner, but it is what it is, right? So we saw Shericka Jackson on the first leg, the start for the women's 4x100 meters. And I did say in my video that actually I've been discussing this, for a minute, and I've been saying that, I actually don't see Shericka Jackson in any other leg other than start. Now, if you asked me this in 2021, 2022, I wouldn't have told you Shericka Jackson put her on start. I would have said put her on third. You know what I mean? Given the athletes, that we had available to compete. 2021, 22, even 23 is not, 2025. Unfortunately, we have a whole different setup. The only one, I suppose, that's still remaining is Shelly and Fraser Price outside of Shericka Jackson. So things are a bit different, right? So you have to take into consideration the athletes that are competing and what legs they're best suited on, right? And in, taking those things into consideration, the young blood that are coming up. So we have the likes of a Tina Clayton, also, well, maybe Tia won't be there, but, as I said, we're working with a Tina Clayton, and then you have to also take into consideration a Janelle Smith. Don't know who else, they'll be adding to the relay. But when you take into consideration those relays, those athletes, and you're thinking about, who is going to give you their best on what leg, then clearly, Shericka Jackson, in my opinion, has no other spot than first. And the reason I'm saying that is because I'm not putting a Janelle Smith on my first. I'm not having her coming out of the blocks because I'm thinking about also who are the other athletes that are competing for the other countries, right? They're going to have a really, really rocket starter, for them. So whether it be Dina Asher-Smith on start for, Great Britain, or even, let's see, TT Terry. I know she either runs start, sometimes she runs backstretch, sometimes she runs, as a matter of fact, she probably runs anywhere, other than third. I think I've seen her on every other leg, right? So let's say America puts, a bullet starter there, for them. Oh, did I just say TT Terry? Sorry, Melissa Jefferson, right? Let's say they put Melissa Jefferson on start, right? I'm not putting Janelle on start because Janelle is not going to be able to contend, in my opinion, with anything coming out of the box, right? And then I'm also, possibly, you could consider again a Tina, for the start. But again, what leg is she best suited for? Is it the start? Or could I put her someplace else? Given, as I said, I don't, prefer Shericka Jackson on anchor. Never did, so I'm actually happy they moved her. So taking these things into consideration, and there's also Shelly, as I said. I've already talked about Shelly. She's a no-brainer. Backstretch for me, given her experience, that's, my thought process for her. So the only other place for Shericka is the actual, start. But I've been seeing, a few of you in the comment section saying to me that it seems as though they're setting up Shericka Jackson to run the backstretch by having her practice passing on the start. So I said it to myself, oh, this makes sense. So we have a relay that matters not. We're not going to lose nothing. And we want Sherika to run on the backstretch. Now, don't get me wrong. If Sherika Jackson can pass a button and receive it, and there's no slowing down at the button, hell yes, put her on the backstretch. Me not have no problem with that. But until such capabilities are displayed, I'm thinking otherwise. You know what I mean? As a matter of fact, she'd be perfect for backstretch. That way, I could stick Shelly on anchor, stick Tina on first, and have Janelle on third. Perfect relay, right? But is that going to be the case for Sherika Jackson? I don't know, right? So that was the thought process that was swirling around in the comments, and I'm thinking to myself, so if you want somebody to be able to practice on a leg that you believe that they're being prepared for, which is second, you have them practice on first. I've never heard this before in my life. Somebody in the comments is going to have to say this to me for it to make sense, because how is it that you're going to have an athlete practice on first for second? Okay, track is. I'm not saying I'm a know-it-all or anything. But to me, the more I replay it in my brain, is the more crazy it sounds. So, in my opinion, right? Let's say they want Sherika to now go on second. Put her on second. Let her get some practicing from now, so she can get into taking that baton from the starter and handing it off over to the athlete on the third leg. Like, how is it that we have her on start practicing for second? That make no sense to me, right? But I'm not against the idea, as I said, because some of you, are of the thought process that Sherika could go on second. I'm actually not against it. It's just that given Sherika Jackson's, capabilities, the fact that apparently she can't receive and hand off a baton like, majority of the people that have been running relays, then unfortunately Sherika Jackson is just going to have to be stuck, on that start until otherwise, right? And I'm hoping that eventually we will see her, learn these skills so that really we can use her effectively. That's what we want, even on third. But again, I'm scared of putting her in the middle of a relay because I don't want the baton to slow down too much. And that's the same issue I have with Tina. Even though Tina has been running backstretch her whole life, you know what I mean? I don't want the baton to be slowing down. And that is why I'm also, wary of putting her on even the back stretch, for the women's 4x100 meters. That being said, given that I saw Sherika on start, in my mind, I'm saying, okay, Sherika Jackson is going to be running start at the World Championships, because it makes zero sense to have her practicing on start when you want her to run someplace else, right? To me, at least. And then it seems as though they want to have Janelle run backstretch, but as I said, that words not make no sense to me. For me, Shelly and Fraser Price, great backstretch runner, right? She can also be a great anchor, but given her experience again, and the fact that we don't want the baton to slow down, we want it to be seamlessly received and passed off. Shelly and Fraser Price, I believe, is the only athlete that can do that. And I believe that whilst every leg is important, I think the backstretch is make or break, for a relay. That's always been my opinion. I've always said it. You guys can think otherwise, no problem with that. But I've always thought the backstretch is make or break, for a team, right? So Shelly and Fraser Price backstretch for me. It's interesting that how they set up the 4x100 meters. And I want to shout out Brianna Williams, because I see a lot of people, complaining in the comments about why was Brianna, on anchor. And I'm like, oh my gosh, can you all just, use a few brain cells and realize that, the first three athletes on the first three legs are part of MVP, and they're probably all practicing together, and it would be easier, especially if they're trying to work Sherika in on the start, to just, slot Brianna Williams on the end, just to see how the current structure that they're trying to formulate in their brain would work. And as I said, if the thought process is to, slot Shelly on end, then it's easy peasy, plug and play. We're plucking Brianna out and we're, inserting Shelly. So again, just, use a couple brain cells. And I also want to shout out Brianna, because she was contacted last minute. She's such a team player. She said, absolutely, I'm ready to run for Jamaica. And she jumped right in. So shout out to her. And she did an absolutely great job on her leg. We can't ask for more than, what an athlete can give. And that is literally, what she had. Her leg for me was seamless. She received the baton and she ran her best leg. So shout out to her. But anyway, back to the main topic, right? So again, based on what I'm looking at, right? my thought process is, since I'm putting, Shelly and Fraser Price on the back stretch, then that leaves Tina for anchor. No, is that the best leg for Tina? I haven't seen her on anchor. I'll know. They have her running third leg. For the life of me, I don't know why. They're putting her on third. I do not think third suits her. From I've been watching them at World Relays, I've been saying third is not the leg for either Tia or Tina. And they've been trying to force this third, and I don't know why. But yeah, we need to work it out. We need to figure it out. And make sure that we have the best team, or the best structure of the team heading into the World Championship. So ideally we could say Sherika to Shelly to Janelle to Tina, or we could still do the same, Sherika to Tina, because Tina has been running backstretch her whole life, to Janelle to Shelly. Either way, track is, I don't necessarily think I'm 100% against it, right? And the more practice Tina gets, the better she will be. I'm kind of surprised that she isn't as dominant as she should be receiving the baton, considering that she's been doing it for so many years. But I've watched her over the years, and every time she's receiving the baton from Serena, she's always adjusting it. And I'm not a fan of adjusting a baton in the middle of a relay. Take it and go. That's my opinion, right? So outside of that, as I said, I'm not against her running back stretch, so we can do it either way. But as things stand right now, it seems as though Sherika Jackson is slotted in on the only leg that is, I think, available based on the athletes that are competing and her skill set. If she was practicing all these years to run on different legs, then we could have started her on second, and great. But that isn't the case. But I also wanted to point out as well, because I did review the actual TV footage for the relay, and yes, Sherika did hand over the baton first. I was saying that Dina Asher Smith came upon her, but Sherika actually did hand over first. So really, really a solid leg from Sherika Jackson. And yeah, it shows that she can run a different leg. It shows that she can run a different leg, and she's not stuck upon anchor. But good going. Well, not good going. Lots of work to do for the women in the 4x100 meters, or at least the coaches, not the women. The coaches need to figure out where they're putting who on the 4x1. I look forward to seeing what they come up with at the World Championships, and I pray to God that it's well thought out. Anyway, guys, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Like the video, of course, and subscribe to the channel. I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.